Hello, I'm Dr. Jodie Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Hello, and welcome back to a very special episode. I'm here in the studios of Positive Media, 89.9 The Light in Mitcham, with a very special guest. He's kind of part of the furniture around here, much more than me. I'm joined by Kel McWilliam, and he is very well known, of course, by the Light family as a co-host of The Brekky Show, exactly one half of the Brekky duo, Lucy and Cal, for breakfast. And here on 89.9 The Light in Melbourne, they're a beloved breakfast duo, and Cal has really kindly agreed to have a conversation with me today because we've talked a lot in the studios and in the halls passing by, and today we're going to sort of sit down behind the mic, and it's actually Kel's first podcast, although he's very experienced behind a microphone. So Kel, welcome to Well, Hello Anxiety.
Hello. Thank you, Jodie. Appreciate being here.
Yes.
It's not something that comes naturally to me, surprisingly, being on the air and doing a breakfast radio show. Talking about myself and my feelings is not my number one thing I love doing, but I feel like I'm in safe hands.
Oh, I'm glad you feel that way. And it's hard probably for people to kind of wrap their heads around the fact that you will be here on air, and Light listeners will know, and if you haven't tuned into Lucy and Cal for Brekky in the morning, you'll get to know Lucy and Cal really well because you're really open, you're obviously married and talk a lot about kind of family life, and and yet in the same way that I would just freeze if you asked me to go on air for the Brekky Show or to do something on radio, whereas I'm super comfy doing the podcasting. It's a different experience, isn't it?
It's all like context and what you've learned to, become accustomed to. I cannot get up on stage very easily and speak in front of large groups of people. I mean, I don't know you do that, and I'm always amazed at people that are able to take to the stage and then just speak effortlessly about whatever they're speaking on. So yeah, it's much easier for me in the studio with just the microphone and my wife and our producer, and that's it. And
you're normally behind the controls, and so here we are just sort of sitting down and relaxing and about to have a conversation about something that I reached out to you to ask, because when I first started here, I think it was about last October, I learned that you had, you've got your standing desk for your controls.
Yes, my purpose-built standing desk here in the studio to stand up.
That's it. And
so it's surprising that I'm sitting down for this podcast.
Yes, and do feel free to stand if you end up in pain.
Well, it shows you how far I've gotten on my journey. So
yeah, I learned about you that back pain was a huge part of your life.
Yeah, I was the back guy.
You're the back, and it's an identity thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually, and I know we've kind of discussed this in passing, that it becomes a bit frustrating after a while, where you're sort of you become the thing that you're battling against, because inevitably, if you've got a struggle in your life, especially a physical one, it tends to announce itself to everybody around the space that you're working in. So yeah, for a long time there I became the back guy, and people, very well-meaning people here at the station, and even listeners who would hear the show, because we spoke about it a fair bit for a while on the show, would come up, and the first question guaranteed to be, how's the back going?
Yes.
I actually even went to a radio reunion across the weekend, and a wonderful friend who I'd not seen face to face for 30 years. We'd caught up obviously over text, but I saw him for the first time in 30 years, and we haven't really talked in depth about anything in depth. It's more just radio talk, and his first question was, how's the back?
Oh, gosh.
so for a while there, it got quite frustrating, and I never sort of I never asked anyone to stop calling me, or asking, being nice to me about the back, but you do get a bit frustrated because you feel like that's the only thing that defines you as a person, especially when you're in the throes of trying to combat this sort of physical hurdle that you're kind of dealing with.
And it speaks to the connection that people want to make, and because you are well known.
Yes.
And I guess when people greet you or meet you, they're showing you, aren't they, that I know something about you, and I care about this.
Yeah.
But I think I've done that too. Actually, I reflect, I've probably come in and maybe known that you weren't travelling so well and then seen you the next time and asked that question. And I think it's really good that you can say that, because I know with anxiety, and I interviewed Dr. Stephanie Dowrick, and her book is Your Name Is Not Anxious. And we can often really identify that this is me, and then our world kind of revolves around the diagnosis, and everything about our identity is very much sort of linked to that conversations and experiences and decision making around what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And so it's nice that you're able to sort of say that. And so I'll never ask you again, and it is out of love.
Well, that was the thing that I had to contend with. I had to contend with the fact that I'm frustrated because the battle that I perceive I'm having with my pain in my back may not have been going as well as I wanted it to go. And then for people to just genuinely be nice and caring and ask about how I was going, almost for me was like it's just adding fuel to the fire that I'm still dealing with what I was dealing with. But I agree with you completely, because I've got a daughter and a teenage son, and I know if you've got teenagers, they have a lot to deal with in the world. And a lot of the time they might be diagnosed with something, or they might have something they sort of define themselves with, and then that becomes their entire focus, that I have this, so therefore I am the way I am. And I love what you said about you kind of have to acknowledge that you've got something but not let it define you. And I think that's I'll take that home, and when I'm having my next chat with my teenagers about it. It's good good to reflect on.
Yeah, and I mean, you've lived and breathed it when it's the opposite. And I wonder if you could share with us, because it's not as straightforward a story as people who don't know your story might be thinking. They might be thinking, I wonder what happened. I wonder what, the incident was. And I know my dad has chronic back pain that I think is a very similar situation to yours.
Yeah, half the problem was it probably wasn't what I thought it was, and that was half the problem, as I said, because a lot of the time when you feel pain, obviously you automatically just think, well, this is a physical problem that I've got. So the longest story short, probably over, I was thinking on the way in yesterday, because I was trying to figure out what the timeline was, because I'm not very good with dates and times.
Doesn't matter. But
it was easily about a decade ago. So it's almost been a 10-year journey. And I'll give you the physical nature of what it was to start with, which was simply about 10 years ago, I started having twinges in my back, muscular twinges, but they were very short, sharp pains that I'd never had before. Lower back predominantly, but sometimes up the spine and up into my, at the broader end of my shoulders, and just random sort of spikes of pain. And of course, at the time, about 10 years ago, when I'm just at the end of my 30s, I was thinking, well, it's probably nothing. And I'd never experienced that sort of pain before, so I wasn't quite worried about it. It wasn't really impeding me. It was a bit of a wake-up call every time it happened. I was like, oh, that hurts, or oh, I don't know what that is. And I thought in my late 30s, must be getting old. As we do.
Watch yourself, Kel.
I know. I realise now in my 40s, I wish I was back in my 30s again. And ultimately, the twitches and the twinges and the pain ended up in one day at home. I was by myself, and I just lost the power to stand up. I literally was just slowly but surely making my way to the front door of my home, and I realised something wasn't right, and I was getting these multiple pains in my back, and then I just lost most of the power in my legs, and I sort of got onto my knees. And then some spasming started, and I was literally sort of laid flat on my stomach at the front door in my home by myself, and I couldn't get up off the floor because it felt like I've had brushes with being, this sounds a bit weird, but I had brushes of being electrocuted in my time as a carpenter.
Yeah, okay.
Sometimes you touch the wrong wire, or you grab onto something you're not supposed to grab onto. So that was how I sort of felt. It felt like shots of electricity in my back and spasming in my back. And sure enough, I was on the ground, and I was at the front door, and I couldn't get off the ground. If I tried to move, my back would spasm and sort of hold me down on the ground. And it was just me and the cat.
Oh.
So the cat wandered up and sort of sat and looked at me, and I couldn't quite understand what was going on. And the pain that was going through my body at the time, it was the sort of pain that was so painful, I had to laugh about it. I don't know if anyone's felt that sort of pain. Like, it was just crazy. like, I just found myself laughing at how
Almost hysterical?
at like how ridiculous this situation was. 2 seconds ago I was standing up, and now I'm on the ground spasming, and I can't get off the ground, and it's really painful. Eventually I dragged myself into the lounge room, found my mobile phone. I called my parents at the time because I knew they were closest to home. They were just living around the corner. And of course Mum and Dad turn up, and I remember having like a third person perspective of my dad pretty much just picking me up and cradling me and walking me to the car and putting me in the back of the car, and they rushed me off to the emergency room at the local hospital. And that began the journey of what's going on with Kel and his back. At the time, I spent, I think it was overnight in hospital, and they pumped me full of painkillers and muscle relaxant, and kind of got my body back to just working condition again. And by the next day, they'd jettisoned me out of the hospital and back into the real world. But I was still in quite a significant amount of pain, and it took me about 2 weeks to get back to normal sort of moving around in my day-to-day life. And I also realized, and what became more prolific, I guess, was my mental ability to have confidence in my body was completely shattered.
Yeah.
For some reason, and I didn't realize it at the time, but the physical was one problem, the pain, but my mental ability to be like, everything's going to be okay, I kind of lost a lot of that. I used to be very confident in myself and my physical self and the way I held myself and the way I interacted with people. I'm a fairly confident person, but when that happened to me, I started to question a lot of things about where did this come from? Why was I in so much pain? I don't want to be in that pain again. So after about 2 weeks of rest and sort of stretching, I sort of got back into life. And then over the course of the next 5 or so years, it happened 2 other times. There was another time it happened where I was in bed one day, woke up, and I couldn't get out of bed. So I was lying on my mattress on my back, and no matter how much I tried to turn onto my side or move in any direction, pain in my back, sharp stabbing sort of electrical shots in my back. And again, the ambulance had to come for the first time. So the ambulance came, and the paramedics rolled in the
gurney?
On the wheels.
Yeah.
And they hit me with the green whistle, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
I started to see rainbows and unicorns.
Relief.
And everything was fine. And they picked me up, put me on the gurney, straight into emergency again. Again, sedatives and sort of painkillers and muscle relaxant. And the next day, back out into the world again. And third and final time it actually happened at my parents' house. And again, my back failed me. I crawled down the hallway to try and get back to one of the bedrooms in my mum and dad's home. And when mum and dad found me, I was on the floor in the corridor of my mum and dad's house for about 6 hours before the ambulance was able to turn up. And all fairness to the ambulance, they're dealing with like car crash victims and really major stuff. So when you call up the ambulance and say, well, there's a guy there with a sore back and he can't get off the ground, they're like, well, take some Panadol and let us know. But I couldn't quite explain to them that I couldn't physically move. Every time I tried to move, these just spasms would happen on my back. And again, back into the hospital for a third time, back into emergency. They admitted me, more painkillers, more muscle relaxant. Next day, back out into the world. That's a summary of the physical nature of what I'd been through over the course of almost a decade.
Yes.
So 3 major events, but in between all of that, just a lot of obsessing.
Yes.
I went on a journey to try and figure out what was going on with my back. Initially after the first incident, and between the second and the third, there were MRIs, there were CAT scans, there was X-rays, there was physios, there was chiropractors, there was everybody, foot specialists, just trying to figure out what was wrong. And again, in a world where you think, well, it's going to be a slip disc, or it's going to be a cancerous lump, or I'm going to have some sort of issue with my spinal cord, they couldn't find anything.
Nothing.
No bumps, no bruises, no chips, no nothing. There was nothing that would identify any of what I was talking about physically. Nothing was coming through in any and all of the scans I had, and I was drinking glow-in-the-dark liquid and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And this is over the course of many years, just trying to be on this journey of trying to figure out, why do I have these spasms in my back? Why am I constantly obsessing over this? Why am I always worried about the pain? Why am I fearful of what's going to happen if my back does fail me? And subsequently, I turned into the back guy.
Yes. Yes.
Now, that's the physical nature of the situation I was facing, and also the mystery of not being able to identify where it was coming from.
Yes.
And it was only in the last few years, through counselling and through an actual a wonderful man that made contact with me at the radio station, I sort of opened up about my issues with my back, this mystery back illness.
This was on air, you were talking about it, yes.
And at the time, he said, I heard your story and I think I can help you. Now, he wanted to help me in a physical way. He was a chiro. And he's a wonderful man. He's got a heart of gold. And he did start sort of manipulating me and trying to fix me in a way. But at one point during our sessions, he was like, you know what, I think this is something else. He said, I've pretty much done everything I can do for you physically. I think there's something else going on in you that is causing this pain.
Yeah.
Is causing your back to spasm, or at the very least is causing you to obsess over this and to worry about when it's going to happen next. Because there was just this overriding fear of it always happening, to the point where for a couple of years I would never bend down to pick anything up. I would never bend at the waist. I would always get down on my knees and pick stuff up. So if I'm emptying a dishwasher, I'd get down on my knees and put all the plates on top of the bench, then move them from the bench to the drawer. My whole life was designed around not aggravating my back.
Yes.
This is about the middle of this 10-year journey. But when he said, I think it's something else, he wasn't quite sure what he was saying either, but he says, I think it might be something either mental or emotional in you that is triggering some of what's going on. I think there might be some stuff you're just not dealing with. And so what I haven't told you is, during the decade of my back being such an issue for me, and the fear and the anxiety of it not just going, but also the fear of it going.
Yeah.
Through a lot of counselling and through a lot of sort of love and care from Lucy, my wife, and my family, realised that as I look back across that time, especially in the darkest parts of that time, and when the series of really bad back situations happened, where I was literally laying on the floor for 6 hours, unable to move because of back spasms. What I didn't realise in my man brain is that I was going through quite a bit in my life that I just wasn't processing.
Yeah.
My personality is quite laid back.
Yes.
But also another part of my personality, for better or for worse, is to kind of move through things.
Move on from things.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And I knew this about myself, but it's also, in one way, if you're going through something, in a way, it's kind of healthy not to dwell in it. But also, if you're not a dweller and you move on too fast, you don't deal with anything.
You're not processing any of what you're going through, yes.
You think, you know what, yeah, that's a dumpster fire, and I really acknowledge that it's been terrible, and I acknowledge that it's something that it's affected me, but let's move on.
Shut that door.
The sun will come up tomorrow, and there's always tomorrow, and we'll make it a better day. And that's how I kind of live my life. From big event to big event, I kind of just tried to move on from it. But I couldn't move on from my back. It was haunting me.
Yes.
But what I realised through the very intense and probably the most painful periods of my life physically, I was going through some pretty deep and hard stuff emotionally and mentally. I had my marriage breakdown. There was about 3 or so years of really, we tried our very best with marriage counselling, but of course, opening up a marriage that's not working and dealing with a marriage that's not working with a counsellor can be quite hard.
Yes.
Because you talk about a lot of things that you're not necessarily either equipped to talk about at the time, or you don't really know how to talk about it. And it can be very painful and it's just a very raw experience to go through a marriage breakdown. And especially trying to save a marriage that you hope on the inside is savable, but in reality is not.
Yes.
And again, that happened, and I kind of tried to move on.
What was the timing of this marriage
marriage
breakdown
and the sort of
first
3
incident?
years of trying to save the marriage as it broke down was the first probably 3 years of that 10 years I talked about.
Really? So it was all very much
Yes.
coinciding, yes.
Which I didn't make any connection with my marriage breakdown and the fact that my back was becoming such an issue in my life.
Yeah.
I just separated the two as if one was physical and one was obviously what I was dealing with, but it's separate to, obviously I've got this marriage that's failing, but I've also got back problems and they're not connected.
And how unlucky that I've got two terrible things happening at
Yep.
the one time, but making no connection
So
between
that's
them.
maybe the first 3 years of that decade that we talk about. And then maybe a year, 4 years into that, I lost a friend who took his life, which is very unexpected. It was the classic story of, on the outside, very affable, friendly, very social guy, but had a lot of demons on the inside that he was trying to deal with himself.
Yes.
And then moving forward a few years after that, I had a very close family member try to take their life as well.
Oh, gosh.
So you say that now in the space of
Yes.
3.5 minutes and you go, well, that's a lot to process, Kel.
Yes.
And it turns out Kel wasn't processing any of that.
no.
I felt like it was a lot. I didn't make the connection between what I was going through in my life and connect it to my back problems because I just thought they were all separate. And I thought, well, if I've cried about a certain thing for a couple of days, that's enough.
Yes.
I won't bother with it anymore. It's happened. I'll move on. And what I've learnt in hindsight, even catching up with you in the last month or so, I started to hear things towards the end of that 10-year period when, spoilers, things have gotten a lot better. And you said it the other day, but there's a book out that a lot of people reference called The Body Keeps the Score, which I think we should delve into.
Yes.
But also that phrase, psychosomatic.
Yes.
And you'd be able to explain this much better than I can because I'm not an expert, but the idea that if you're dealing with a lot of trauma, well, no, let me rephrase that. If you're not dealing with a lot of trauma, if you're not acknowledging the stress that is in your life, it can very much affect you physically, whether that's a migraine or a sore elbow or irritable bowel or problems with your lower back or pain in general.
Yes.
There's a huge batch of research that says the emotional stuff we're going through is directly connected to the physical stuff that we go through. But like most men out there, it took me almost 10 years to figure that all out.
The fact that you're here talking to me about it means that people listening will, if you know, it's new to some people, this idea that what we're experiencing emotionally and psychologically can have a very, very real impact on how we feel. And we talked about this idea of psychosomatic, that it was once, I think, generally thought that, it's in your head.
Yeah.
But in fact, we know it is actually very real, a very real experience. The pain, the discomfort, whatever it is that's happening in the body is a very real experience.
Yeah.
It just so happens that on an MRI, you won't find the locational source of that
Yeah.
in those tissues or in the joint or...
Yeah, and you're already in a weird mindset that if you've got physical pain, you're just expecting to see a slipped disc or a broken bone or a lump. Not that you're hoping for a lump, but at least it would... I remember like 4 or 5 years in going, I just wish they could find something
Yeah.
and say, it's this terrible thing.
Yeah.
And part of me would be like, thank God.
Yeah, that's
At
it.
least I've got an answer. And I do remember another moment towards I will say in the last 3 years, I've been really good.
Yes.
That's the joy of the story, that when I started to realize that a lot of my pain could possibly be coming from unprocessed trauma and not just going through the stuff of life that I've been through. When I found out that the connection there, it was really powerful. And one of the things that tipped me over the edge was at the very last sort of bit of this really hard part of the journey where I was just trying to find anyone with an answer. I went to a doctor who was a foot specialist, and I thought, well, if it's not from the top down, if it's not my spine, if it's not my lower back, if it's not my muscles, if it's not my core, because we've been through all that,
Yeah.
because everyone always had an opinion. Was that, what did they say? analysis paralysis.
Oh, yes.
I was quite
yes.
literally getting analysis paralysis, and sometimes I was actually unable to move because of my back. But the foot doctor said, look, I've checked your feet. Your feet are normal. There's nothing wrong with your feet. And this is what I loved about some of these specialists, because sometimes you think, oh, they're just there, that you're just a number.
Yeah.
I just could have assumed that this specialist would quite honestly be, look, I'll put in an order for a $700 pair of orthopedics for you.
Yes.
But she didn't. She said, I want to tell you something. And she said, I've said this to a few people recently, and I'm seeing a trend. And she said, I think what you're going through at the moment has got nothing to do with your feet and nothing to do with your back and nothing to do with you physically. She says, I think it's something that you're not dealing with mentally or emotionally. And then she took my hand.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And she looked me in the eyes. She goes, I know you feel the pain. She says, I know you know the pain is real. She says, I'm not saying that. And she said, but I need you to understand the pain is coming from a different place.
Yes.
And it's not physical. And I just burst into tears. I just lost it.
That.
Just a grown man in this poor woman's
podiatry clinic.
But she's seen this before. So I think she just spotted me as one of these people that was dealing with physical pain but not really dealing with the source of the pain.
Yes.
And when she said the words, I know the pain is real, she says, I know it's real for you.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's not there, but it's not coming from where you think it's coming from.
Yes.
Almost to say, stop searching for this in the physical makeup of your body and start searching a little deeper and start processing some of the stuff that you've been through your life. So.
Yes. Start to look somewhere else, and she pointed you right where you could begin.
As you said, it sounds, you end up feeling like a crazy person sometimes, saying, I feel this pain, I feel these spasms. I could literally not get off the floor. But if I was really honest with myself, sometimes you're like, yes, I couldn't get off the floor, but was that the fear? Was that me overthinking everything? Was that me being just consumed by the fact that I've got all this other stuff bouncing around in my head, all this unprocessed trauma, all the stuff that I need to deal with that I've never dealt with before? If that's all bouncing around in my brain, which is directly in charge of my body, surely something must have to give.
Well, there's a saying, isn't it? I've got a colleague who I work with who's in the UK, and she uses this expression, I was on the floor. Yeah. I was on the floor. And she's a group analyst. She's amazing. And you know, I think about my experience, because I experienced a traumatic event and for 12 months had numbness and tingling and pins and needles in my limbs and had all the testing and was expecting the worst case scenario in terms of the diagnosis. But sort of almost when you get nothing, you're like, well, now what do I do? And it was only when I started to become very depressed, I think I was telling you, and this was long after my original major depressive disorder diagnosis. I'd really just been dealing with anxiety, but I rang my therapist, who I'd said goodbye to for the last time. See ya, not coming back. And as he sort of stepped me through, when did this all begin? And even just that question, I was able to sort of start to put the timeline together and go, oh, okay. And then back to therapy I went. And then the symptoms settled. They settled. And so you've had a podiatrist who was able to sort of recognise this in you. And once, I mean, did you have the time and the space? I know that you burst into tears, and it must have been, you know, really, really difficult, because you're in a space where you only sort of barely know the person. Yeah. She was obviously very supportive.
She's very caring.
Yeah.
It was those two moments. It was the moment that my chiropractor said, I think it's something else.
Yeah.
And you just have to be open to the idea that this isn't a physical problem.
Yes.
This might be something else.
Yes. ...
But obviously I don't think he felt like he was in a place to say what it could be.
And not necessarily having any expertise, because the medical model is one whereby we expect, and a lot of listeners will be thinking, gosh, well, I know someone who's got chronic back pain. I've never stopped for a minute to think that it could be something other than a degeneration or an arthritis or a disc slip or something.
If it feels physical, it must be physical. And the lady that was the podiatrist, I think she probably just saw it on me. Yeah. Just the years of trying to find a solution. Because often when you would come to somebody new, whether it was a chiro or a physio or somebody at the hospital giving you a scan, they go through your history. Like, so when did this happen? How many times has this happened? Who have you seen? Where have you been? And I think by the time I got into this particular lady, I had like a almost
like a folder
years,
of
7 years into this decade journey, 7 years of just trying to search for an answer.
Yes.
And I think she clicked at that time that if he's gone this long and now he's coming in to see if his feet are okay.
Oh yes, you didn't stop. You weren't going to give
she's
up.
like, I'm going to tell him. And I think it's what we know, right? So more often than not, if we're going through something personally, we can't see it. We're just too close to it.
Yes.
So she was able to hold up a mirror and just say the right words. Just say, I know you're in pain.
Yes.
Because I'd often gotten people going, you shouldn't be in pain. All these scans, all these tests are telling us
invalidating.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be in pain. We're not sure what's going on. So for her to say, I know you're in pain, but there's also nothing going on physically.
Yes.
But it is. And that's the sort of spiral you get into.
Yes.
Pain is real. It's a physical pain.
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't come from my physical self, then how am I supposed to correlate with that?
Yes.
Until you start to realize that, and this is the proof for me, is that in the final 3 years of this journey, up until this day right here where I'm sitting with you and having no issues, after my marriage breakdown, I went through a period of being single, and I learned a lot about myself as a single dad and what I do to deal with stuff. Through counselling, I learned a lot about how I operate to deal with things. Through the loss of a friend and through the almost loss of a family member, I was able to see myself reacting in those moments and then go back and go, well, that's clearly not a healthy way to react.
Yes.
And I need to sort of react again in a way that is more sort of in a healthier way. Because I think sometimes...
Respond rather than react.
Yeah. In a trauma situation, I think sometimes when you're very close to the trauma, you just kind of react however you do.
Yeah.
But more often than not, I never thought about going back and sort of not necessarily reliving the trauma, but acknowledging what it was.
Yes.
And how should I have gone about that, and then try to go about it a bit better. And in the last 2 or 3 years, I've been doing that. And again, my life has become more stable. I'm married to a wonderful, beautiful woman who's I'm lucky enough to work with each and every day here at the station. Who cares about me, and we are very much a team now. And we've been through so much together that we realise that we're not just a simple story of A, B, and C. We're all over the map because we've lived a life.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think a lot of people that go through this sort of stuff, one of the upsides of it, if you can survive it, is you learn so much about yourself.
Yes.
And I learned that, there's a lot of stuff that I used to just move on from, and there's a healthy balance of dealing with stuff, acknowledging what things are. I even had to apologise to some people in regards to the way I reacted to some of those events, especially with the almost the loss of a family member. I took that pretty badly.
Of course, yes.
And I was quite angry at that person.
Yes.
And it wasn't until another family member intervened and said, you've got to stop being this way because it's not that person's fault.
Yes.
This isn't happening to you, it's happening to them. And that sort of sat me on my backside. But it was things like that where instead of moving on from that moment, I was like, oh, right, I've got to look at myself a bit more. Because I think people that move on from stuff, again, outwardly it might look like, oh, they're so together because they just keep moving on from all these traumatic events.
Yeah, that's it. What a resilient person.
Look, he turns
Throw
up to
anything
work,
at this guy.
Turns up to work every day, is laughing the next day on the radio, making jokes.
Yes.
And yes, people are capable of doing that, but what it also means is that they're probably not spending any time at all. Not acknowledging necessarily, as again, I try not to wallow in the sadness of it, but there's a healthy sort of medium I find where you actually have to just analyse it a little bit.
Yes.
And maybe not even focus on the traumatic event, but focus on how I've reacted to it.
Yes.
And in that case, I've been trying to do that for the last 2 or 3 years. And the sort of the defining moments for me now are occasionally, maybe once or twice in this last 3 years, I've had a back spasm. But instead of catastrophizing what's about to happen, am I going to have more? Is my back going to fail me again? Am I going to be on the floor? Because this is how it used to be. I'd be on the floor, and then The worst thing about having a bad back is the recovery is just lying in bed and staring at the ceiling. And for somebody that's always moving on or filling their mind with stuff to ignore what's going on, all you do is lie in bed.
It's more time and space just to think about it.
Just to lie in bed. I remember specifically the second time my back went, I was in bed for about 2 weeks. And I just had so much time to think about all the things that are about to go wrong because I can't move.
Yeah.
Can't be a good dad anymore because I can't pick the kids up from school. I can't go to work, so I'll probably lose my job. And you say these things, and then they don't go anywhere because it's just you staring at the ceiling.
Yeah.
And I learned that, you know what? It's good to think about this stuff, but it's also good to think about not necessarily the long-term catastrophe that I'm writing in real time.
Yes.
What can I do in the next hour?
Yes.
That makes me feel better. Is it listening to music? Is it having a pray? Is it calling somebody?
Yes.
Is it just doing something inane?
Something to distract yourself.
Exactly.
Yes.
These are all the things I've learned across the last 3 years specifically. So even my most recent sort of episode, I remember happened at the start of this year. And again, and I think you've spoken to this as well, when you've got a physical ailment that sort of comes and goes or has maybe been a bit of a hurdle for you in the past, if it happens to you in the moment, you tend to rewind straight back to the worst part of that ailment. As you said, numbness of your limbs is...
Yes.
When you said that so casually, I was like, that's pretty terrifying.
Oh my, yeah, and isn't it funny that,
And then if that happened to you tomorrow, I don't know how you'd react, but I know for me, I'd be like, if that was my situation, I've taught myself now not to stay, because you almost, for me, I don't know if it would be the same for other people listening, but for me, if my back spasms today, instead of me getting dragged back to the worst possible time of that actually happening in the past, which is what used to happen, I used to get dragged straight back to ground zero.
Yes.
And it would take me days to get over it mentally.
Yeah.
Now I've gotten down to I'd say about half an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. And especially with the help of my wife, Lucy. At the start of this year it happened, and obviously I was probably dealing with some stuff at the start of this year, and it's got to do with the kids.
Yes.
Got teenagers, so we all know how that plays out, that I just wasn't processing. And I had a really bad morning where I was on my back on the floor in the bedroom, and I was like, I'm not great. I'm actually old Kel at the moment. I'm starting to really worry about my back again. But Lucy was able to walk me through some of the reality.
Right.
How long ago was the last one?
Yes.
Years ago. You know what's happening right now, don't you? You're not processing some stuff that's going on.
Yes.
Yep, that's true.
Yes.
And she was able to sort of talk me back.
Yes, she was able to sort of be, because we have this observing self. We have this part of ourselves that we can look at what's happening for ourselves, but when we're spiraling, we don't have access to that. And so she was able to sort of play that role for you in the most beautiful way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it might seem like tough love at the time, but it's kind of like what I need. Sometimes I need her to be like, okay, well, we can stay on the floor and just be sorry for ourselves.
Yes.
Or we can look at the history. Because I used to look at the history in a bad way, very historical in all the terrible things that had happened, all the pain I'd gone through. All the times I was on the floor unable to move.
Yes.
But now I start to be historical about, well, this is how long it's been since a real severe episode. I can count the days now in the hundreds where I've never had an issue. I sit down, I don't have an issue. The one thing I do struggle with sometimes is that because I'm not a medical professional and because I'm not a learned person, I only have my experience to go by. But I do like the idea of talking with people like yourself and other people that have an understanding of what this is. Yeah. And as you said, it manifests its way differently every time, but the idea of pain in your body not necessarily being physical pain, for me, having other people like yourself or other professionals acknowledge that that's a thing was huge for me. Because at the time you just feel like it makes no sense. It's like saying, I saw a unicorn.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. When really somebody's saying, yep, I know you're in pain, but it's not the pain you think it is. It's not a physical pain. You won't find it there. You'll find it in your heart or you'll find it in your mind. At the time, if you say that to yourself, you're like, oh, I'm just a crazy person.
Oh, you're just...
I'm not making any sense.
How can I feel this way where there's nothing wrong? and we grow up. I mean, no, ask any teenager or primary schooler, if they would, they would, obviously we wouldn't ask them this, but they would never, they're not taught, we're not taught as young people to understand our nervous system.
No.
And the learning is still growing and developing. And Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, it's a tough read because it a lot of people have said it's quite triggering. And in fact, one of the early Amazon reviews apparently was, couldn't throw this book in the fire hard enough, because it was very, very confronting. It's very confronting, but it's so invalidating when someone says you shouldn't be in pain. It's like that's like saying, I don't believe you. It's like
your story's not real.
Yeah, that's right. And probably explains the tears when you were really validated.
Yeah.
And there was a part of you that knew she had absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
And so that's just that relief almost, isn't it? But of this acknowledgement, this validation.
Yeah.
And what did you do next? What was the first sort of, obviously you had to kind of go out and pay for your appointment, which is always like...
Well, that was towards the end of the 7 years of the decade we talked about at the very beginning. But
yeah.
The weird thing is that nothing much changed until you look back and you go, oh, I didn't have a back problem this week. Because I was so used to having pains every day, or I was so used to not bending down to pick something up.
Yes.
And I found it was almost that release of, we've tried everything else. I've tried every test. We've tried every version of a doctor or a specialist.
Yes.
Why don't I just put all of my effort into trying this, that the pain is not physical.
Yep.
It's just the stuff I'm not dealing with. So I doubled down on going to a counsellor.
Yes.
And talking about all the stuff that I wasn't dealing with.
Yeah.
And we spent a huge amount of time. All I needed to say were the three big things I sort of talked about briefly. And she's like, great, we've got the next 6 months taken.
Yeah.
She was amazing. And I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about processing trauma, and I learned a lot about being a dad. I found that I was also putting a lot of pressure on myself being a single dad.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And feeling like I'd let everyone down by not being able to keep the marriage together, and feeling like I'd let the kids down. And everyone in the space that I was in telling me, and these professional people saying, it's going to be okay. Yes, it's a terrible thing that's happened, but you will recover from this.
Yes.
And kids are resilient. And all the things that you hear, but you just don't believe at the time.
That's right.
So dealing with all of that stuff, which I didn't even think I needed to deal with, but being a dad, I needed to deal with being a dad.
Yes.
And I needed to deal with being a single dad. And I needed to deal with the fact that I was a bit of a control freak, and I wanted to try and control everyone by looking after them.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing I learned about myself. I often do a lot of things for a lot of people.
Yes.
And on the outside, it seems great. But what I'm really doing is I'm just trying to control my environment.
Yeah.
So cleaning the kids' bedroom, or doing all their washing. And,
yeah, I do. It's kind of like outside order might equal inside order.
So if I can control everyone that is valuable to me in a weird way, I'll feel better about myself. But what I'm actually doing is putting so much pressure on myself, because if I have a bad day with my back, then I tell myself I've let everybody down.
Oh,
everybody in my life is fine. They don't even know this.
No, they're just going along with their day. Yeah.
One of the greatest days I ever had was with my son, my 18-year-old now, but I think he was about 15 at the time. And I had one of those days where I had to apologize to him for not being like a dad that was on top of everything. And he looked at me mid sort of confession, oh, son, I'm so sorry that I'm just not really on top of things, and I've made a bit of a mess of my life because of this, that, and the other. And then he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, Dad, we never thought you were perfect. We never thought you were this super dad.
Yeah.
Just people validating you in a way that is we didn't expect anything from you. We didn't expect this from you. You're putting all this expectation on yourself.
Yes.
And then when you don't fulfill these expectations that you put on yourself, you then spiral into this place of, I've let everybody down.
Yeah.
So I think one thing I'm learning, even just saying this out loud, is that if you're going to the people that you care about, or the people that you think you might have let down, or the people that you think you might have said something wrong to, more often than not, a lot of the time they're like, that wasn't really a blip on my radar.
Yeah, they're just going about life.
I release you from all that.
Yes.
That's kind of what he was saying. We never expected you to be the perfect dad. You can just be the best dad you can be.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a perfect dad, but to be released to that sort of stuff from other people was really empowering for me. So, the last few years has looked like basically a bad day doesn't turn into a bad couple of weeks. To get on top of it mentally, I kind of just sort of separate myself from the physical, because the physical is the loudest thing. The physical is what's screaming the loudest.
Yes.
But the key is sort of like the quiet little middle bit where you go, I just know where this is all coming from. I know where all this loudness, this my back, and the spasms and the pain, I know where that all comes from now.
There's a saying that the body will whisper, and if you don't listen, the body will raise its voice, and eventually the body is yelling. And there's a great question that we can ask ourselves, whether it's a physical experience or something we're thinking, what am I making this mean?
Yeah.
What am I making this mean? And so and it could be anything from I'm having a back spasm, all right, what am I making this mean? And your mind has this, you've got this story from your experience, because we can label our stories too, which can be really powerful. We can go, oh, that's the old, you said something earlier, you said I was the old Kel. And you can go, oh, that's the old Kel story, or the bad back story. Yeah. Here we go again. Oh, that old chestnut. Hello, thank you for showing up. Not reading that book today. And with a little bit of humour, but also this idea that it just helps us recognise that's a story that crops up. That's a thinking that we're experiencing. We can look at our thinking, I think, is what I'm trying to say. And you've learned, you're doing a lot of this just through the learning that you're experiencing along your journey of healing with your therapist and with Lucy and with your own self-discovery.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, if anyone is listening and makes any sort of connection with the rambling that I've gone on. But I think you're right. I think it's the ability to be analytical or analyze what you're doing.
Yes.
Because a lot of the time when it's pain, it's happening to you. And you kind of just, as you said, it's just the loudest thing in your life.
Yes.
And it's all you think about. And if you have the power to just sort of step outside of that just for a second or a moment or a day, where you're like, why am I the way I am?
Yeah.
Because another part of me that struggled was, well, what about people with migraines and irritable bowel or all these spasms and things like that? You have to go on that journey of the physical to start with. You've got to explore it, because
a lot
of the time it's just a quick, yep, this is definitely, there's the lump, there's the slip disc, there's the broken arm, whatever it is.
Yes.
And then a medical professional can say, here's what you need to do to fix that. But yeah, I think when people get to a point where they've tried to find it, and it's like the professionals are just saying, there's nothing there, that's a great moment for you to be like, don't get down on yourself and go like, well, there's something wrong with me, and I'll never know what it is. That's a time to sort of step out of yourself and be like, well, let me analyze how I am. What processes do I go through when this happens? When I get a migraine or when I get a bad back? How am I feeling? What has happened recently? That sort of stuff. That was a huge thing for me, to be able to sort of almost break it down forensically.
And see a pattern.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the chaos, because it's all loud and it's all painful and it interrupts your life, and then you're not going to work or you feel like you're letting down family and friends. But if you can just, like you said, that what you just said earlier, that quiet little, there's a quiet little thing trying to tell you the truth, trying to tell you everything. But it's just getting to that little, oh, that's what it is.
And that's painful, and that's really hard. I mean, the traumas that you've experienced, and we as humans, we all experience trauma at different times in our lives. And Bessel van der Kolk, again, just referencing his work again, he'll say that, we don't sort of process it into a memory at the time. I'm sort of thinking of those memory balls from the Inside Out movie, that we don't sort of process it into a memory that's a thing of the past. It stays with us, and we relive it until such time, which is what you've been able to do, is we have the opportunity to connect with other people and talk it through and unpack it, understand it. And that's a really confronting thing to do. That's not easy. No. What would you say to any people listening who are sort of thinking, gosh, there's a real voice of reason here, and I really do know that that's probably what I do need, but I'm frightened. I feel fearful of doing that.
I remember being that exact person. I remember feeling like I knew what trauma was, and I felt like I knew how people should process it, and I felt like all I felt like you had to get to a point where you're like, tick a box. The most frustrating thing for me was I kept getting told by counsellors and things like that it's a journey. It's like something that can revisit you at any time.
Yes.
You never, not that they were being in a negative way, that you're never truly over it, but just in a realistic way, you will never be able to map out how it's going to affect you in the present or in the future.
Yeah.
For me anyway. And I always used to get really frustrated because, again, someone that likes to do all the washing and control. I just wanted to tick a box. Trauma. Dealt with that trauma. Right, let's move on to my friend here. Deal with that. Let's move on to this family member. Deal with that. Boom. Great. Moving on with life. Never a problem again.
Close that door again.
But life is, and one of the things I tell my daughter at the moment, she's dealing with a bit of anxiety, my youngest, and I have learned that it's okay. And I sit her down, I say, it's okay for life to be messy.
Yes.
Messy is okay. Because messy is kind of what it is. It's just trying to create order out of this chaos that we call being a human being and being a parent and having a job and looking after teenagers as well as having kids or not having kids or having a dog that's going to have an operation, cost you $22,000.
Oh my gosh.
Having a car crash. And it's just, it boggles the mind, the stuff that people have to deal with. There's just no order in that. There's just trying to process it.
Yeah.
And learning that, I think the other thing was learning that processing stuff is not ordering it. It's just sitting with it.
Yes.
Not in a way that you dwell in it and you go, oh, this defines me, but it's more like sitting in it so you can be like, I'll just place it almost out on a table.
Yes.
And it's not going to be in a straight line and it's not going to be A, B, and C, but it'll be like, okay, what about this? How am I feeling about this moment?
Yes.
How have I been feeling? Why am I thinking about this moment a lot this week? Or if there's something that I haven't dealt with, it'll be like, well, why am I not thinking about that? Why do I keep pushing that away? That's what I think I've learned. And I think, it's a hard thing to do sometimes, defining. And even the professionals I talk to, they didn't want to define what dealing with trauma was.
Yes.
Because it's different for everybody.
And
maybe some people it can be like a box ticked. And maybe you find yourself going through something and then 10 years later you just burst into tears.
Body keeps the score.
And you don't know why you're crying. And you've got to go on that journey to figure out why you're going through what you're going through. So I don't know if I have an answer for people about going through that journey of dealing with trauma, but I do know that if you don't deal with it, like you said, it will manifest its way somehow.
Yeah.
That little quiet moment inside of you saying, hey, let's deal with this bit.
Yeah.
If you just keep pushing that down and pushing it away and ignoring it. And I've seen that in people that are close to me, that, and different generations were taught different things, and a lot of people just push it down and push it down and push it down until it can't be small anymore and it just explodes into your life. Yeah. And if you thought life was messy before then, try doing life and dealing with stuff that you haven't dealt with for a decade. Yeah.
That's right. And also sometimes those people, and I think of somebody in my family, completely dissociate and completely sort of become so numb to it that they're numb to everything. Yeah. And it's not living. That's not living. And,
it feels easier. But you end up going through the motions. Yeah. And then you're no help to anyone. Like the one thing I've learned about being in radio, especially at the Light, is that, and we say this on our show, that if we can just talk honestly about what we're going through, if that helps one person listening in, then that's all the difference we need to make. Because sometimes you just need to realize you're not the only one. Yes. I went through this whole thing thinking I was the only one making up this pain in my head, until I speak to people like you or other professionals going, oh no, this is a thing. Oh, this is totally a thing. It's a bit ambiguous and there's no clean cut. I know you want to tick boxes, Kel, and I know you want just a clean cut piece of paper that just says, this is Kel. You're not going to get that. Yeah. That's the journey you have to go on. But I think, messy is good. Messy is okay, as long as it's not like, I'll sit in this mess and not try to negotiate my way around it. I love that you've said that. There's an acceptance around, we do try to make everything neat and tidy and orderly, and we can drive ourselves, batty trying to do that. So this acceptance that it is messy, and just when you kind of think you've got a little bit of order, something else inevitably pops up, and it's this idea that we can
we all live this way. It's very much a part of life.
Yeah.
The amazing things that come with being human, and the joy and the pride and the love and the, absolute excitement that comes with so much of what's awesome about life brings so much challenge, family and relationships and pets and work. And I love that you've sort of said this idea about, and we're here in the studio and Kel sort of put his hands over the table, kind of like putting it all down in front of you, and whether that's kind of metaphorically or literally writing down kind of some of it. There's a couple of sayings, Kel, which I'm sure you've heard: name it to tame it, feel it to heal it.
You told me that.
I did I? Yeah. And the science around even just name it to tame it is phenomenal, the way it engages different part of our brain and helps reduce our distress around what we're experiencing. But we don't, there's work that we can do to help ourselves move through it and move to the other side of it. But our attempts to kind of shut it down, box it up, go round it, under it, over it's a bit like the Going on a Bear Hunt book. I'm sure that's what that's all about.
Yeah, you're finding every way possible not to deal with it. Yeah.
It's exactly right. Before we finish up, I do just want to ask one more question, because, listeners to the Brekky Show with you and Lucy will know and love you are very laid back. You're so funny. You're so witty. I listen to you guys in the morning and I think, how can you be, one, so funny, so calm, so switched on, and so witty and so full of compassion for people at the time of the day that it is, because you start very early.
A couple of coffees in.
I guess my very last question to sort of round it off is, how do you go on the days where you are really struggling, because life happens to you like it does to everyone else?
Yep.
And you can share about what's happening, but you also have a very public facing job to do, where you might feel like all you want to do is curl up in the corner and cry, but you've got to come on and you've got to be upbeat and entertain.
I think we even had a quick chat about this about a month ago as well. You talk about some very key things that so it shows you that I'm listening to everything about, but I find it easier to do. Let me start by saying this. When you're doing something like radio, or if you're in media, or maybe you're doing a podcast, or like yourself as well, speaking to large groups of people, I find it would be the hardest would be speaking to people and engaging with people in a live sort of sense.
Yes.
Because you really have to not just sound okay in a way, but you also have to physically, which I have limitations. One of my limitations is physically my face and my demeanor can come across sometimes as not the most connected.
Oh, okay.
We call it resting Kel face. But so I think that would be more exhausting. So let me try because I think this is a great question for a lot of people, because I told this to my mum once. I was having a bit of a pity party. I'm like, Mum, you don't get it. Mum, I'm going through all this, my marriage falling apart, or I'm dealing with my friend that's no longer with us, or dealing with this family member, or anything else I was going through. And I've got to turn up every day, and I've got to pretend that everything's okay. And yeah, we talk about ourselves, and sometimes we're deep. But again, when you're on the radio, and I think people just need to understand this, when people say they give all of themselves, they kind of do.
Yeah.
But it's you turned up to 11.
Yes.
And there's always got to be an understanding that you, I, anyone that is a communicator in this sort of media, whatever it ends up being, podcasts, audio on demand, radio, TV, or even just in general, if you're a communicator, you're giving of yourself, but not necessarily everything. We're all human beings. You've got to have some stuff that you keep to yourself.
Yes.
Because I think there's a danger of if you give everything, that becomes a little unhealthy.
Yes.
You overshare, and it becomes this thing that you need to do. Whereas sometimes you just need to keep some stuff to the really people that you can trust in your own life.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, Lucy and I have become a style of show where we will always be up and about.
Yes.
Hey, it's a Tuesday, everyone. So excited. What a great day. Check out the weather. Hey, coming up. But also having the ability to be vulnerable sometimes. So I did open up about my back on air a few years ago, and I was quite teary about it.
Yeah.
And that was apparently one of the most listened to, downloaded bits of audio that we had at the time, which I didn't know how I felt about that. Everyone's like, congratulations, Kel. You shared your trauma and it's really popular. But I think
Gosh.
The thing that defined me about, because I always used to think it was unique to people that broadcast on the radio or public speakers and things like that. But I was having this moment with my mum where I'm like, no one gets it. And mum's like, I was a primary school teacher and I had to sit in front of 30 kids every day, rain, hail or shine, and I had to be Mrs. McWilliam. And I had to be on point and I had to control all the kids and I had to be happy.
Yeah.
And she's like, and this was great about my mum, she says, it's not just you, it's everybody.
Yes.
Everybody goes to their own place at their work and they put on some sort of
front
shielding. Yeah.
Shielding, yeah.
I think everyone innately understands what it's like to be going through stuff in your private life, but then having to put on a different sort of persona in the workspace or around friends. All I can say to that is that if you try and do that every single day of your life, or if you try and become this perfect idea of everything is great all the time, one thing it won't do is it won't make you relatable.
Yes.
Because everybody is having a mess of a day.
Yeah.
Some people are having the greatest day of their life.
Yes.
But a lot of people have got stuff. We all have stuff in our life. So I feel like there's that balance. There's the balance to be able to be up and about and be personable. And you can do this in your own family as well. Like if you're going through some stuff, maybe your brothers and your sisters and your mum or your dad or whoever it is don't want to hear about it all of the time.
Yeah.
But there will be a moment where they would be open to it. So I think there's that balance of, and as we have sort of played out with Lucy and Kel, that majority of the time we're there to be uplifting. We are providing a service to our listeners for them to turn on and hear music and have a bit of a laugh. That's what we've tried to offer people. So we try and stand by that. But we've also now, over the many years that we've been broadcasting, we've been able to build a relationship enough to be real.
Yes.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think there is a balancing act to dealing with the stuff that you're dealing with. You need to sort of pick and choose a time when you deal with it with other people.
Yeah.
That's where professionals come in. So a counsellor is actually paid by you to sit there and listen to all the stuff.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to friends and family, I've heard so many stories of friends and family not being able to carry it all, and that sometimes breaks down a relationship.
Yeah.
So I think people, and it's a hard thing to do, if you're in pain or if you're struggling and you feel like you've got to reach out to somebody that you feel cares about you, I think you've also got to understand what you are like outside of your body. And it's not, this is an easy thing to say. I think there might be people out there struggling with that right now. There has to be a time and space for you to be able to depend on your family and your friends, but also to know when to just be a great friend.
Yes.
Or just be a great family member and not, again, and this is the way I learned not to be the back guy. So
yes.
instead of me coming to all my family and friends and always being like, oh, my back, oh no.
Yeah.
It doesn't like play down what you're going through, but also you're more than, as you said from the beginning of this podcast, you've got to be more than what you're going through.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to be more than what you're going through for your kids, or maybe you've got a mum or a dad or a relative who's going through their own stuff and it needs to be their time. So
yeah,
I think you'll find, and I don't, like I said, I don't know how you do it because I know that you're a real life human being. And if people met you, they would see bright and bubbly and caring and attentive and listening. But I'm sure you have days where it's a Wednesday and you're like, I don't want to talk to anyone.
I have my moments, just ask my husband. But I love that. I love that answer. I really appreciate that. And yeah, we all do it, don't we? We put a professional kind of mask on, for want of a better word, and we do what we need to do, and every now and again we might be in the workplace and we can't maintain that, and that's okay as well. But we can't keep that on all the time. We need to have a time and a place and a safe space to be able to share. And I've got so many other things I want to ask you. But
I'll also
go on.
say just for that too, some of the best successes I've had on this journey have been when I have obviously shared with the right people, but also when I've decided not to share.
Yes.
If I've had a really bad day physically with my back, there would be a tendency sometimes to just sort of go, I can't do this anymore.
Yes.
But instead I pushed through, haven't told anyone. That was a big part of my journey as well. Not necessarily always telling people when I was in pain.
Okay.
And going through a show.
Yeah.
And then proving to myself that I have the strength to be able to negotiate some of this stuff on my own when I have to. You've got to be able to rely on yourself as well. And sometimes I know we all want to have that person that you can just pull the safety cord and go, come save me.
I know.
But sometimes I think part of the learning is you are going to be enough if you believe in yourself enough to be able to be like, if I just breathe through this, breathing's a big one.
Yes.
You've taught me a lot about panic attacks. I've had 2 in my life. But even just breaking down what a panic attack is.
Yes.
And what's happening to your body and how you're responding. These are all great things to learn.
Yes.
Because they equip you to be a stronger version of yourself the next time you feel like you're falling apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're falling apart, but also you might be a stronger version of yourself this time around. So it might play out a little differently until each and every day is connected to each and every day, and it starts to play out in a more positive way than a more negative way, but it takes time.
It does take time, and it takes the support of others and learning and counselling and professional help, but also, like you said, learning then that I actually have the skills, I actually am equipped. And I remember I relied on my mum with my anxiety, and then Peter took over kind of with all the reassurance, and just I couldn't cope, I couldn't deal with anything. Like the stuff going on in my head was just horrific, and I just have to ask all the time, is it going to be okay? And now I might need to do that sometimes. Of course I need to talk things out, but now I have the skills, I have what I need within me to be able to support myself. And we don't go through life alone, and we're best with others and getting that support, but we also need to develop that kind of, like you say, that strength in ourselves. And you've done that. And I think it's taken a lot of strength and courage for you. I know it's been a big week with your reunion and now a podcast recording. I tell you what, I'm grateful.
Well, this is what Lucy loves about me, because at the end of a breakfast show at 10 o'clock, I'm all out of words.
You're like, I'm just mute
peace
now.
And quiet at home.
Oh, Kel, honestly, I've wanted to, we've talked about having this conversation for a while now, haven't we?
I've put it off and put it off.
Is that what's been happening? And then you had a lovely break, and I'm so, look, thank you, because it does take courage to talk openly, and you know, you've really shared vulnerably about what you've been through, and I know that, you know, people who already know you love you and really enjoy, you know, you on the show every morning and learning about you and your perspective and your wit, your intelligence, and the way that you do lift others up. The positivity that you bring is really special. I don't know how you feel about me saying all these things about you, but just
hit me with intelligence, and I wasn't sure.
Cough it. No, it's still coming. I really want to thank you, because conversations like these can be really life-changing for people. Like, you've been through a huge journey, and sharing that story will hopefully have lit a lot of light bulbs for people listening, whether that's for you as a listener, for someone that you know, just to have a different way of looking at pain and trauma and understanding how to process really difficult times, and just this idea that we all go through really difficult experiences, not ones we necessarily want to give all the details out about, to protect ourselves and to protect other people, but the time that we've had together, I'm truly grateful for. And yeah, I do hope that you can have a very, very quiet afternoon. And I know listeners will really, really be grateful, equally grateful to you for taking the time. So I want to thank you very, very much.
Well, as always, you've made this very easy, Jodie, and it's quite easy to, I feel, as Lucy says, it feels like free therapy, just hanging out with you. So thank you. I appreciate what you said, and I appreciate your time. And we love this podcast. This is one of those sorts of tools that people can use, as you said, to build up a bit of resilience, because you'll hear a story, or you'll connect with one of your guests or yourself, because you're very open as well, and you'll be able to be like, oh yeah, I'm not the only one going through the stuff that I'm going through.
That's
and
it.
even knowing that
Yeah.
is super powerful in somebody's journey to being either more resilient when it comes to trauma, or even potentially moving through it.
Without a doubt, resilience is not built in a vacuum. We have to go through stuff to be able to learn how to go through more stuff, because that's kind of life, isn't it? So your lessons today are really powerful. So thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And thank you for listening. And if this conversation has brought anything up for you, I know that can be really hard, but I also know it is a really good opportunity for you to think, what do I need? Who could I speak to? And if you're not sure, if you don't have a therapist or a counsellor, then please start with your general practitioner. But I really hope that this is a conversation that you've loved just as much as I have recording it, and that it's really making a difference for you or for someone in your world. So thanks again for your time, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jody Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodyrichandson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.